Hello and welcome to the Tank Club. In this video we're going to be taking a look at Expedition Etiquette, and the reason for that is to hopefully guide people to becoming better teammates when doing group PvE content in the New World MMO. Not everyone has a wealth of experience playing MMO games, and New World may well be the first time you've dived into an MMO game and decided to do group content. There are a few things that you can do to help make expeditions more enjoyable for everyone, and you should also see an increase in your success when attempting to complete them. So number one, communication. This is an MMO game with group content. It's always nice to drop a hello in the chat and be friendly and sociable. When doing harder content, be prepared to have voice chat available so you can follow any mechanics, any strategies, or directions from your tank and group members. Number two, let people know if you don't know mechanics at the start of an expedition or start your own lobby. Now, I'm quite skeptical to mention this because a large portion of the New World players that I've encountered have very little patience to guide or help new players. The problem is, if you just try to jump into an expedition not knowing what to do, you're likely going to get kicked because people want to rush through and speedrun every single time. There doesn't seem to be many people who like to teach mechanics or help new players progress, but if you create your own lobby and name it that it's a learning run or something along those lines, then you might find more patient group members to help you progress and learn. Number three, don't do mutated versions of expeditions until you know how to do the base level mechanics after multiple runs on normal. You are going to want to complete an expedition a few times before you even consider the mutated version. When doing mutated versions, the difficulty is upgraded, there's new mechanics, there's new damage, there's new effects, there's lots of things happening. You need to know how to complete the basic version to a good standard before you start to take that increased difficulty level. When doing mutated expeditions, you need to come prepared, making sure you have enough gear score, you have wards, you have bane, and you have consumables that are all effective against the enemy type that you are fighting. Number four, don't run ahead of your group or your tank. There are almost no situations in New World PvE content where it's beneficial to run ahead of your group. By running into combat first, you guarantee that you'll pull aggro of enemies onto you, and it'll make it harder for the tank to generate threat and keep the enemies attacking them. You'll disrupt the positioning and the ability to stack the enemies so that they can be killed quicker. You'll actually make things move slower, so don't run ahead. Number five, let the tank pull enemies. Are you a tank? If the answer is no, then do not start combat. To any seasoned MMO player, this is pretty obvious, but if you are new, then stay back. Your tank is the beefy guy who's usually holding up a shield and built to take damage. The main job of these guys is to protect you so that you can safely do damage or heal your group. You make everyone's life absolutely miserable when you pull enemies and don't let the tank do it. The positioning becomes a mess, the taunting of enemies becomes harder, and you'll quite often die. Number six, stack on the ranged enemies. So New World has a system for aggroing enemies that is based upon threat, so whoever has the highest threat level against enemy is the one that becomes targeted. There's also no ways to like pull and chain and stack enemies that are spread out over large distances. So when you are in a room with enemies spread out, especially a lot of ranged enemies, the priority is for the group to go and stack on those ranged enemies in most cases, and then the tank should bring any melee enemies over to those ranged enemies and stack them on top. It's as easy as that. Number seven, if you're being chased by loose enemies, run to the tank. Tanks in New World only have two taunt skills, maybe three depending on what abilities are slotted. These skills also have really long cooldowns. This means that a tank has to try and stack enemies and then output a lot of damage and do abilities to keep them aggroed. If you are being chased by an enemy, it's not really going to be possible for the tank to just run over and grab it. It's not that simple. If a tank is chasing down one enemy, it will likely mess up both the stack of the enemies, the positioning, but they will also begin to lose aggro. So the best thing you can do is run over to the tank so they can start to hit that enemy and start to generate threat, which is going to pull the aggro onto the tank. Number eight, make sure you're standing behind enemies. So the collision in this game is a bit of a problem. It makes it hard to tank bosses and keep them still, keep them locked into a place, especially because the positioning changes keep happening and the collision is really, really poor. So always make sure you're staying alert. Make sure you're looking at what you're doing, maintain your position behind enemies, especially bosses, and you'll, depending on the things that you're using, you might get increased damage for that situation as well. Number 9, this is one For the healers, do not place your ground healing down until after a few seconds into a fight. So a lot of healers make the colossal mistake of running into a fight, immediately placing all of their healing down on the ground. Why? By doing this, you are instantly making life difficult for yourself and for your group. You'll instantly generate the highest threat of enemies, and they will beeline straight for the healer. So let the tank run in, let the tank get control of the fight, place your healing down on the ground once people have actually received some damage. Do not pre-place it, do not put it there while people are at full health. Wait a few seconds until people actually need the healing. Number 10, if you're being hit by an archer or a mage, run past the tank so it goes into the enemy stack. So it's the tank's job to control fights, but sometimes it's hard when there are a lot of ranged enemies spread out over a large room, especially on boss fights. When this happens, you can kind of pull enemies in by running past the tank, running behind them. The enemies will chase after you and go into a stack where the tank can grab hold of them really, really easily. It's also possible to line of sight by hiding around corners and objects that will make enemies run over to try and hit you in combat, and that's a good thing to do if it's near the tank as well. So try to do that if you are being attacked. Run past the tank, line of sight the enemies or pull the enemies so that they come into position better. Number 11, don't stand there soloing one enemy. Follow the group so everything can be killed in AoE damage. Some group members love to stand there focusing killing one lonely enemy that hasn't followed the rest. Don't do that. Always follow your group. It's far more efficient to follow the group, stack up enemies so they can be killed with area damage, meaning you can kill multiple things at one time rather than slowly killing everything one by one, and you also avoid the potential that you're going to die as well from that single enemy. Finally, we've got the last one, number 12. If you run around and you separate from your group, you cannot be healed. So tanks have limited cooldowns on their taunt skills, and healers also have limited cooldowns on their healing abilities. Try to stay stacked up as much as you can with your other group members, especially when you're taking damage. It's not possible for a healer to place healing in multiple different locations in a room where people are all spread out. If you're not going to stack, then you need to look for the green circles on the ground so that you can get healed. So maybe you're playing at range, you take some damage, move towards the healing circles to get healed before you move back out again. A healer cannot chase you around to heal you, especially if everybody is spread out everywhere. By being away from your group, if a healer then decides to go and prioritize to heal you because you're taking damage, this will lead to deaths of your other group members, and potentially the tank will die as well, which will quite often lead to a group wipe. So just try to stay close to your healer, close to your group, in stacks. If you are going to move away, look for the healing when you do take damage, and make sure you're looking at what you're doing. That is everything for my etiquette guide for New World expeditions. This is how you be a good teammate when doing that group PvE content. If you've got any other suggestions, please post them in the comments below. For more New World tank content, make sure you check out thetankclub.com. And if you need any help with anything relating to New World and tanking, you can do so in the Tank Club Discord. The links are in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye for now.